Welcome to today's session, and we're going to go over some final strategies to how to actually improve your score and how to utilize these strategies. I just wanted to mention that we are volunteers and we have a lot of costs coming up, especially if we want to go the nonprofit route. So we would really appreciate if you guys can donate and help us out so we can help you out even more. And we're actually giving out a picture of this sticker. It doesn't say MCAT 101, but it looks kind of like this. So if you want that, it comes with every donation. And that just helps us cover our website and stuff like that. And let's get started. So I just want to check in with you guys. How has CARS been going for you guys? Let's just take a breather and just check in with that. So feel free to reply in the chat, or if you want to talk, you can also talk. What have you been struggling with in CARS? What do you still find the most difficult? What do you need help in? So that can kind of help me know what to focus on. How are you guys doing with timing and stuff like that? Okay, grasping the main idea, strategies, main idea. Okay, great. You're good with timing. Okay, that's good. Okay, yeah, the main idea is definitely an important one because you definitely want to know what the passage is talking about, and that's where most of the questions are going to come from. A good idea for the main idea is to break down the passage, and if you don't understand the passage or a paragraph, learn to move on, but learn to break down the passage that you're able to understand it and explain it to like a 5-year-old, you know? So that can really simplify the passage. And even if you understand like one sentence from that paragraph, that can be a good thing and can help you understand the general layout. So we'll work on that, but thank you for letting me know, and I will keep that in mind when we practice and stuff like that so I can help you guys out more. And remember, if you haven't taken a diagnostic test, make sure you do that. So if you're scoring less than 125, you really need to work on just reading comprehension and getting that main idea down, because that's where most of the questions come from. And you can use that doing third-party passages like Jack Weston, Khan Academy, Kaplan, or anything like that. Okay, so the key is to review your mistakes. So if you don't review your mistakes, you're going to keep making them again and again. And in CARS, that is really important because usually you need to figure out what type of mistakes you're making, where you're making them. You need to find that pattern so you can try to see like if you're forming some bad habits, or you really just need to figure out where to focus on so you can start getting those type of questions correct. So let's go over how to review your mistakes and the questions that you missed so you can learn and start to get those right. So this process really helped me go from like a 125 to like a 130 plus. So this can really help you just understand where you're missing your questions and start to get them right. So what I did, I wrote everything down. So this can be a little tedious, but it can also motivate you. You know, you want to start getting questions right so you don't have to like write them down and stuff like that. So I just use like an Excel sheet, but you can also use a notebook if you like to actually physically write. But I wrote down for every question that I missed or like I guessed on and got correct. I wrote where I found that question, what the question number was, and the answer versus the answer that I chose. the type of question. So the type of question is like, was it an inference question? Was it like a Roman numeral question that you missed? And you want to write down what you were thinking, like what was your thought process when you attempted this question? And then a good thing to write down is a strategy for next time. This is usually like going back to the passage and making sure you read all the answer choices, stuff like that. You want to just write this down and make sure you're doing it. And if it was like a passage, you can write if you ran out of time, if you went over time, how much time you used. That can also help you learn if you have a timing issue. Yeah. And I attached a spreadsheet at the bottom. So when you get these slides, you can either copy that spreadsheet and just use that for yourself. So it kind of just has all of this down. Does anyone have any questions on kind of how to write down these questions that you miss and stuff like that? We can also do like a practice with this when we go through the passage. But let me know if this makes sense. Makes sense? Okay, cool. Okay, so what to do when you get the question wrong. You want to go through your thought process. And this is important. Like when I usually went back, I was like, oh, that was my second best answer that I was going to pick. So you want to think why you didn't pick that answer and why you got it incorrect. This really helped me understand why sometimes, like when I was stuck between two answer choices, that someone mentioned that you always end up picking the wrong one. Yeah, that happens a lot because it's really hard to like think in the moment and you get caught up in the answer choices and you end up picking the wrong one. So what I used to do when I did the passage, when I was stuck between two answer choices, I would mark that question. I would circle the one that I ended up choosing, and then I would still somehow mark that second best answer so I knew to come back to it. And I would definitely like review those questions really carefully and the answer choices. So read through the answer choices really carefully. And if there's an explanation, really try to understand that explanation and why that question answer you got like was wrong. Or if you guessed and got it correct, why it was correct. So this is kind of understanding the logic behind those answers. So after a while, you'll start to notice a pattern why you used to get those wrong, and that can really help you understand. And then later, since you're writing these questions down, you can go back to the passage and try to redo that question or that passage and see if you get it right this time and see if you change your way of thinking or something like that. So just by keeping a log, you'll start to see a pattern of the questions you miss a lot. And then you can kind of like pay more attention to those type of questions when they come up. Like I saw that I was actually missing a lot of Roman numeral questions, and my strategy for that was just to slow down and read through the passage more carefully. And it's tedious to check every Roman numeral in the question, but it really helps to go back to the passage and make sure that you were checking off every Roman numeral if it was correct or incorrect. So you'll start to see a pattern, and that can really help you understand and learn from your mistakes, because that's how you're going to start getting them correct. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so for the pattern, definitely write down, did you run out of time? Were you feeling tired? I've just mentioned all of these, but just make a note and like notice these patterns early on, because if you notice them early on, you have time to fix it and time to improve. Cars can really take a while to get a hang of. You need to find your strategy. You need to start using that strategy and see if it works for you. And then you need to start working on passages. So let's go over how to implement that strategy. How long did it take me to get to that score? I practiced I practiced cars every day for around, I would say 2 months. And I would do at least like 3 to 4 passages. In the beginning, I would do one, just like Jack Weston passage a day or something like that, just to get used to practicing my strategy and reading comprehension skills. And then I would move on to doing like 3 to 4 at a time, just to see if your strategy is working for multiple passages in a row. And like, do you feel tired, and how to like combat that feeling when you're doing multiple cars passages. That is really important to just understand, and stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend, if you're like 1 month out, to really do at least like 3 to 4 passages in one sitting, so you get that feeling of getting tired and stuff like that, because that's going to happen on the real MCAT, so you want to get used to that and learn early on. How long did you apply your strategies in order to notice whether they were effective or not? I will go through how to do that real quick. It's in the next slide. So hold on and let me know if I answer your question. So figure out your strategy early on. So you want to figure out, does highlighting work for you? Does it not? Does summarizing work for you? Or are you better at just reading the whole passage without writing anything down? So you want to do this by almost doing like an entire car section with one strategy. So like, and then you implement that strategy that you want to use, and then you calculate your percent correct that you got on that section. And then you choose the strategy that gives you the highest percent correct. So what that means is like, I didn't used to summarize before because I thought writing would waste time. But then I started doing that and I started practicing with it. And over time, I actually ended up saving time because I didn't have to reread the passage, and find the paragraph where it talked about that question. Because when I wrote it down, I could remember which paragraph to go back to immediately. And this really helped me in the long run. But it took a while. It did take me like around 2 weeks to practice with it, and just improve, because when you're going to change your strategy, you might see a decrease in your percent correct because you're trying something new. So you want to really stick to it for some time to notice like how you're feeling and stuff like that. And how long were your summaries? So we've been going through this in the previous car sessions, but we summarize each paragraph with just like 1 to 3 words. And you want to just write quick notes and something that just helps you. You don't need to do it for anyone else. It doesn't have to be like a full sentence. I literally would write 2 words that would just like pop out from that paragraph. That would just help me remember what that paragraph was about. And as you'll see in the practice, this is what we usually do. On the actual MCAT, will we be allowed to have a scratch paper? Yes, they give you a whiteboard and a marker. So you also want to practice with like a whiteboard and a marker because that's what you have during the MCAT. And just get used to that style. You can erase, but they give you a tissue. So if you want to use that for erasing. And the whiteboard is pretty big. You can use that for like the whole section basically and not run out, but they just give you a whiteboard to work on. Does this make sense? How to figure out your strategy early on and how to calculate your percent correct? Okay, great. I'm going to wait for a few more responses and then we'll move on. Okay. Great. Yeah, so try to use, once you figure out your strategy, try to use that on all your car's passages. This will help you avoid burnout and getting confused and getting tricked. So once you figure it out, you figured out your best strategy, you need to start using that on all your passages, because that's going to help you get the most correct answers. So eliminate incorrect answers, try to predict what the answer is going to be. These are just some strategies, and use the passage to help you, and just overall stick to the main idea. When you don't know what the answer is going to be, just find the answer that is most related to the main idea. And most of all, you want to just keep practicing with your strategy and your score will improve. And some other techniques for cars is to keep that focus. I've heard that doing meditation and mindfulness really helps to stay focused in long periods of time. So that can really help you. And yeah, let's try to do some practice and we'll go over these strategies again. So if everyone can go to jackweston.com, and we're going to do employee benefits. Let me know once you guys are there. I can also send it in the chat. Here you go. Let me know, and I'm going to start a timer for, I think this is 6 questions, or no, it's 7. So I'm going to give you around like almost 10 minutes. Okay, you guys can start then.
No. रोमियो आजा।
Okay, if you guys need more time, I'll give you guys 1 more minute. Let me know in the chat. Okay, great. So we'll go over this now. How was this passage for everyone in general? Not bad. Okay, good. That's great. Good. Okay. Well, what I usually do, as you guys been seeing in the previous sessions, I like to read the questions before. So just reading through this question, according to the information, the attitude of governments to employ benefits in the hiring process, okay? The author can best be viewed as an advocate of, okay, so this is in support of. 3, which of the following assertions, if true, would most weaken the main point? Oh, oops. Sorry, hold up, guys. Okay, would most weaken the main point. The author's apparent attitude towards how private sector employees handle benefits is most accurately described as. Okay, so the author's attitude towards the private sector. The passage discussion of why pensions and OPEB is more attractive than giving raises. Okay, why pensions are more attractive than raises. 6, the author's apparent point in referring to a period of time in the past when governments were expanding. Okay. And which of the conclusions can be drawn from the passage? Okay, great. So we'll go over reading paragraph 1. Okay, so what did you guys highlight in this paragraph? What was important to highlight? Let me know in the chat. Okay, yeah, so the public sector benefits are widely more generous than those available from private sectors. Okay. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I like highlight and simplify the sentences. So like when I would go back to read this, I would just read public sector benefits more generous than private sector. Okay. Competitive advantage in the labor market. Okay, yep. What else? Yep, it was important in healthcare and retirement. I would also just highlight the gap between the two might be widening. Great, yeah, great point. Okay, can someone tell me what would be a good summary of this paragraph? So just like 2 to 3 words. Public sector benefits, yeah. So public is greater than the private. Yep, that's what I would write. And as you can see, I really shorthand everything. The only person that needs to understand this is you. Okay, moving on. Paragraph 2. What was important to highlight here? How do you add the text for annotating to Jack Weston passages? This is just the Zoom thing. You can annotate on Zoom, I'm guessing. It's not on Jack Weston. Yeah, no worries. Okay, moving on. Second paragraph. Yep, so an increasingly major component of the government's total compensation is retiree benefits. Okay. And that includes pensions and the healthcare. And it's a higher proportion of the total compensation. Is anything else worth highlighting? Feel free to just type it in the chat. Yep. So we get introduced to, yep, OPEB. Okay, and how can we write a summary for this paragraph? Okay, components of public benefits, yeah. OPEB, cool, yeah, I would OPEB. It's the paragraph where I introduced it, and yeah, if we need to, we can come back there. Okay, moving on, paragraph 3. What was important here? Yes, so the benefits are less immediate and visible and less politically controversial than salary increases. So this is kind of why the benefits are important. And why public employees do the pensions and the OPEB versus a larger salary. Yeah. So what does this paragraph talk about? What is a good summary? Yep. So I would just write why. And why is it important? This was what the paragraph talked about here. And yes, and it's going to be salary. Great job. Okay, paragraph 4. So what can we highlight here? What was the important things that you guys saw? Yep, so little attention has been paid to the long-term cost. Yep. Yep, it's become too costly to maintain. It's generally gone unreported, unnoticed until fairly recently. It was like a few decades ago, it was no big deal to pay extra, paying a little extra, no big deal. But now, however is one of those words that you really want to pay attention to. However, this has changed dramatically. So something has shifted, you know, in recent years. Yeah. So this is kind of important to look at. Okay, great. What can did we miss anything? Anyone else want to say anything about this paragraph before we move on to the summary? summarizing it? Okay, if not, what is a good 2 to 3 word summary of this? Yeah, so I would just say now it's too costly. Yeah, that's good. Now I'm just gonna write $. So now it's getting too costly to maintain. Okay, paragraph 5. What did you guys notice here? Yeah, so now we're doing something to improve that transparency, set new standards. So some standards board is removing the cloak from the liabilities, set new standards, and they're going to report on the liabilities and improve the transparency of the government and stuff like that. Yep, good. So what is a good summary of this paragraph? Yeah. How to improve, yep, improving, yep. Okay, last paragraph, we're almost there. What was important here? What was the takeaway? Okay, yep. Too expensive is building to a crisis. Little achieved. None of the states report a likelihood of unpopular action. Changes need to occur, yep. So state officials are aware of them, but there's been little done to deal with these problems, and this is built into a crisis and it's become too expensive. So that is basically the bottom line of what the author is trying to say. How can we summarize that up in paragraph 6? So paragraph 6, yep, we need change. And the author mentioned some changes, so we can start. Yep. Okay, so now that we've read through the passage, as you can see, we didn't understand every single sentence, but we understood the main idea from each paragraph. And this is why just doing that kind of map here really helps to understand the whole passage. So basically the bottom line was saying that there's a lot of public sector benefits and they're more generous than the private sector. And this is an example of one of them, the OPEB. And then the author went to explain why people even choose that over large salaries. But now it's becoming more expensive. Then the author offers some examples on how to improve it and how it is improving. But then overall, he says that the states, there has been little done to deal with the problems and it's still becoming a crisis. It's still too expensive. So does anyone have any questions on the main idea of the passage? So just doing this map kind of helps you understand the main idea and the purpose of the passage and where the author stands for. Let me know if there's any questions before we move on to answering the questions. Okay, if there are no questions, we will go to question 7. Which of the following conclusions can be drawn from the passage? So this is a Roman numeral, and I usually like to do these by looking at the answer choices. I find a question that has answer choices that are repeated so we can cross them off, but in this case, it doesn't really matter because the answer choices are like one Roman numeral, or this is the only one that has 2 Roman numerals, so it doesn't really matter, but we can just go through it then. So what about 1? What did you guys think of 1? Was that true or was that false? False, yes, that is correct. So we can eliminate any answer choice that has 1, that is A. Okay, what about 2? Did we think 2 was a true statement? 2, okay, also false, great, yeah. And yeah, there was no like discussion really of the cost related to it being cheaper than the salary increases. So that would eliminate both B and D, and we would be left with C. Does anyone have any questions? And without even looking at number 3, we know that would be true. So you would move on the real MCAT, just move on. You know, if you eliminate, if you are sure that the other choices are wrong, this one has to be right. But we can go over it. Just look at number 3. Governments have not managed their OPEB well. Yeah, so basically that was the main idea of the passage. That is definitely true. And how can we make the jump to assuming something versus having it explicitly stated in the passage? So we would definitely go back to the passage. So for number 1, private sector employers do not offer OPEB. Well, the only really place we addressed the private sector was in paragraph 1, where we see, you know, public benefits is greater than private. We would go back here and just quickly skim through the stuff that we've highlighted. And I noticed that we didn't really talk about the OPEB here. We can't really assume that, you know, we can't assume that they don't offer it. It's just saying that public sector had more benefits, but it's not that the private sector doesn't have any benefits. You know, we can't assume that. So that's why 1 is out of the picture. For number 2, same thing. We can't really assume that when we go back to the paragraph 3, where it mentions OPEB and salaries, paragraph 3. Public employers like these over salary increases, but it doesn't talk about it being cheaper than, you know, salary increases. We don't know that for sure. So this is why we would eliminate 1 and 2 from the passage. Let me know if that makes sense. So you can't assume that they use OPEB because it's cheaper for number 1 or 2. Yeah, we can't really assume it is cheaper because we don't discuss the cost of OPEB versus the cost of how much the salary increases are, you know? It's saying, yeah, we really can't assume that. Because there's no like clear distinction between the cost of the salary, like how much the salary increase is. And sometimes it might be greater, sometimes it might be not greater. We don't really know that. And that was not based off the passage. And number 3 is the best idea for the main idea, though. That's what the passage definitely addressed. So we can be definitely sure about that. Let me know if that helps. Okay. Okay, 6. The author's apparent point in referring to a period of time in the past when governments were expanding is that. Okay, how did you guys approach this question? So I would just go off with eliminating answer choices. D definitely does not make sense here because the passage didn't discuss like how much they benefit from it. It's not saying they don't benefit from it, it's just saying it's more expensive now. And more funding should go to OPEB liabilities. The author says the opposite. They said we need to spend less, you know, he wants to he said it's becoming so expensive, you know. So C is something we can eliminate. So between A and B, what did you guys end up picking? Or let me know if you did pick something else. A, okay, yeah, A is definitely the best choice here. But let's go over B. Government should have funded OPEB like pensions. So there's not enough information to say that because we didn't really compare those two. We kind of said both of them go together. So paragraph 3, we just said pensions and OPEB are enhancing the public employers. They want to enhance those. So B is not something we can also say. Does that make sense? Or did anyone pick something else? And A is definitely close to the main idea. The author is saying before, like he talked about OPEBs before and, you know, a few decades ago, and then in recent years. So he's saying conditions have changed, definitely. Yeah, I can explain why it's not B. Well, first of all, just going through A is closest to the main idea. A would be the best answer here, but B is saying they should have funded OPEB like pensions. We can't really assume that because the author doesn't talk about pensions like he discusses OPEB in this case. So there's not enough information to suggest this. Let me know if that makes sense because we're not really talking about that in the paragraph, so we can't assume that. But for A, on the other hand, we definitely talked about in paragraph 4 that before OPEB was fine and it didn't cost that much. So it wasn't a big deal, but now this has changed dramatically. So it's definitely saying conditions have changed. And it says this, however, this picture has changed dramatically. So that is explicitly stated in the passage. Okay. Oh, question 5. Why are pensions and OPEB more attractive than giving employees raises? And what do we assume here assumes that? Let me know what you guys put. Okay, we have some dispute over the answers. So let's go over this. So what can we eliminate off the bat? This is answer A is kind of too extreme. There are no other options, so that would be something that's eliminated. Unions do not benefit when their members get salary increases. That again is not really, it doesn't really suggest that, and we can't assume that they get more benefits or like less benefits, or so that would be another thing that we can eliminate. And C and D, voters have to approve salary increases for public employees, but not OPEB, versus public sector employees generally prefer OPEB over raises. So this is where we would go over to paragraph 3, where we discuss salary and salary raises versus OPEB. So in paragraph 3, we discuss that public employers have opted to enhance pensions and OPEB over large salary increases for a variety of reasons. And he talks about the benefits and why they do that besides and not to pick the salary increase. So that's kind of assuming that employers like the OPEB better than the large salary increase or a raise. So this would be assumed, and that's why it's more attractive. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Number 4, the author's attitude toward private sector employers is best described as what? So this is where we discussed it in paragraph 1. What did you guys say here? B, okay. Yeah, so just going back to that paragraph, he was just comparing it, and he didn't really talk about it in a bad tone, and he didn't really talk about it in a great tone either. So he was neutral. He just like kind of mentioned them. So that would be the best answer here. Okay, which of the following assertions, if true, would most weaken the main point of the passage? What did you guys think about this? So think about the main point and what was the main point of the passage? So remember, the main point was that this is becoming too costly. So we want to think about something that would weaken the main point. So yeah, A would definitely weaken the main point. So if he's saying that the market suggests that the cost is going to go down, that's definitely opposite to what the author was saying. He was saying that the cost is going up, we need to decrease it, and we need to lower the cost and stuff like that. So if this was true, that would definitely take away the whole point of the passage. Let me know if you guys are confused about any of the other questions though. So government employee salaries, if those kept rising, that doesn't really affect the passage. We didn't really talk about the quality of the employers, so that doesn't really make sense. And then for the last one, government employees do not cite OPEB as a major reason that they took their jobs. Again, this claim doesn't really affect how much it costs. You know, the main point was how much OPEB is expensive and stuff like that. And why not C? So this is a reason saying why it should be used. So this is arguing for OPEB. You know, it's saying without this, we would only be able to hire low quality employees. So it's kind of supporting it. It's not weakening it. Does that make sense? We are looking to something to weaken the main point. So this is kind of going for the other side. It's saying without this program, we wouldn't be able to hire, you know, great employees. So that's helping the argument. Let me know if that makes sense. Okay, number 2, the author can be viewed as an advocate of. What did you guys think? So remember, stick to the main point. The author wanted to lower the cost of OPEB, and the best answer that says that is C. That is what C is saying. Does that make sense? Okay, great. And number 1, this is kind of an analogy question. So the attitude of governments to employees is most like what? This is kind of tricky, but what did you guys think? B? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so right off the bat, kind of A and C are kind of similar, like a beekeeper to bees and a gardener to plants. They're both kind of like uh kind of like doing the same thing. So I would eliminate those two. And the government to employee benefits is kind of the government is using the employee benefits to lure the employees in. So that's kind of what a dog trainer is doing. You know, he's trying to give treats to the dog, and it's like a benefit to the dog, or like attract the dog. Make sense? Does anyone else have any questions on anything in the passage? Any question? Yeah, the analogy questions. There are usually, I would say like they're not that common, but I would definitely say they are on the MCAT. Yeah, so first of all, you want to understand what the attitude of government is to the employee benefits. So this was where we discussed this in, where was it? So governments use this to, sorry, let me look for it. Help the employers, and they use employee benefits to attract employees, right? So let me know if that helps, because A and C are kind of just saying the same thing. Like a beekeeper to bees, you don't have you're not luring the bees in, and the gardener's not like luring the plants in, you know. But a dog trainer with treats is kind of getting the dog to do stuff, you know, with the treats. So that's what the government is kind of doing with the benefits to bring in the employees. Okay, and are the questions provided on Jack Weston similar to questions asked on the MCAT? So like any third-party passage, Jack Weston, I wouldn't say is like the best, but it is, I think the passages are fine to understand and read. The length is usually fine. The questions are sometimes debatable and difficult, or sometimes they're just really easy, you know. So it's kind of in the middle, but I think it's a good free resource. It really helped me just because it was a lot of practice, and I would save the double AMC material for the last bit just to make sure you get your strategy down, because you don't want to waste the material just to practice your strategy. So I used Jack Weston just to make sure I had my strategy down. In terms of the types of questions, yeah, so you're going to see analogy question, you're going to see main idea questions, you're going to see weaken, strengthen questions. So these are good practice. Attitude questions, those are definitely on the MCAT. And are there free practice resources offered by Jack Weston? I think there's only CARS free passages every day, and Jack Weston also has this layout is what you see on the MCAT, which is really cool to practice with. And he has all the Khan Academy passages in this layout as well. So that is also cool to just practice with. Are there any resources that I recommend? For CARS, yes, I used Jack Weston, and I used all of the Khan Academy passages. So do all of those, and then do any other third-party passages you need to do. And then I would go to the double AMC material, and I did those twice too. So just do as much practice as you can. Are there any other questions? And yeah, let me know if this passage helped. And please write in the post survey what you guys want to do next, what you want me to focus on in cars and stuff like that. Yeah, and don't forget to please fill out the free post survey. And if you guys want, you can join our Facebook group. We have a lot of help on there as well. And if you guys want a sticker, it comes with every donation, so we would really appreciate that. And you can follow our other social media and stuff like that. I will send a post email, and it will have the link of the Facebook group. Yeah, I'm gonna send the recording out, and once it finishes processing, and you guys will get that information. Yeah, no worries, guys. Okay, bye. Have a good night.